Before we begin, we have to gather a little information from the printer. As you can see, I already have a V4 cartographer mounted on my print head. So when we do this, after the machine is wiped and it reboots and it goes through the self-check, it's going to do the home procedure, which means I need to remove the spacers off the Y rails because it's going to be doing the homing procedure with the stock probe. We also will need to leave the glass door open, or when it does the home, the cartographer would hit the glass. On the touch screen, and you can see I've removed the spacers. On the touch screen, you need to go to settings. First thing we can check is system, and my current version is 1.1.5.5. We go to network. I can see that my IP address is 192.168.1.239. We go to general, we have to go down to root account and click the toggle, click the checkbox, and it's going to make us wait 30 seconds before we can hit OK. Hit OK. It tells us our account is root, password is Creality_2024, and Creality is all in lowercase. If you hit OK, it lists out everything right here. That should be all the information we need before we go to the SSH terminal and start with a printer wipe. In this video, we're going to set up MobaXterm so we can connect to the K2 Plus through SSH. SSH gives us access to the printer's command line. We'll use it to run the K2-Improvements installer and perform several setup and maintenance steps later in this series. Before continuing, make sure you have your printer's IP address, the account name, and the password from the previous video. If you haven't already downloaded MobaXterm, go ahead and download and install it now. Once you have it downloaded and installed, click on Session, click on SSH. The remote host is your IP address. The username is root, and then click OK. The first time it opens, it's going to ask you for the password, which was Creality_2024. And then it's going to ask you if you want to save it. I say yes, so I don't have to keep typing it in every time I enter MobaXterm. And now we're logged in. You see root at K2 Plus. That means you're on the printer command line. So once you've connected in, MobaXterm saves the session. So if we close this, right here, recent sessions, all I have to do is click on that and it opens back up and automatically logs me in because I've saved the password. MobaXterm is now installed and the printer session is saved. So in the next video, we'll use this connection to begin wiping the printer so we start with a clean slate. We are now going to wipe the printer memory. Doing the wipe will put the printer back at factory defaults. Anything you want to save off the printer, any custom configurations, save meshes, installed modifications, logs, uploaded files, you'll want to make sure to back those up before you start this procedure. We're back on the SSH terminal, MobaXterm. It's been logged out. Press R to restart the session. And now we're logged back in. So in the repository, there is the quick start guide. Come down to Creality standard factory reset. You can copy it from the little buttons over here. It says copied. Now we'll go back to MobaXterm and we will paste that in and press enter. It'll say okay, and now we wait. The printer will reset everything and power down and come back up with the setup screen. Now that the printer's back up on the setup screen, we can continue with the initial setup and self-check video. Now that we have the printer reset to factory default, we're going to go through the initial setup screens and let the printer perform its self-check. Before you proceed, if you've had the front mount cartographer installed in the printer, make sure you're removing the y-axis spacers. And also leave the front door open when it's doing its homing procedure, or the front mount cartographer will hit it. Going through the setup screen, we're going to pick our language. We've removed the screws. Our area is clear. Privacy policy. Choose our wireless network. Now we're going to enter the password. Note your IP address in case it has changed. Set your time zone. If the QR code doesn't come up, switch to China's mainland, let it refresh, and then go back to international. It's not necessary to log into Creality Cloud. If you want to log into your account through the Creality app, go to the Creality Cloud app, go to Workbench. In the upper right, you have the little plus sign, scanning code to add devices. Come up to your QR code, it will log you in, and hit done. We are now logged into the printer. Go to the next screen. We are going to skip the update, and now we're going to let the printer start its self-check. Now that the self-check is complete, we're going to skip the update again. We're going to go to Settings, System, and we're going to turn off the update reminder. We are now ready to install the K2-Improvements. We are now going to return to MobaXterm. My session's logged out. Click on it, hit R, and after you've done a wipe, you have to accept the new server host key and carry on connecting. And now we're logged in. If you've shut down MobaXterm, when you reopen it, click your recent sessions down here with your printer IP address. It will ask you the same thing to accept the new host key. Click on it and you'll be logged in. We're now going to go to the repository, and down here we have the command to start doing the Bootstrap, which will start moving files over to the printer. We're going to copy that in here and press enter. The first thing it does is it starts moving over the files it needs to start installing Entware. After Entware is installed, it will then move over the repository onto the printer. Entware is finished installing, and it has also cloned the repository over onto the printer. Now it's asking if we want to enter the menu system. Press Y and then press enter. Menu system is now open and ready to go through and start installing. We're going to do a quick walkthrough of the menu system before we get to the installs. Open MobaXterm, click on the Save Session, should log you into the printer. CD tilde K2-Improvements, sh menu.sh. So here's the upper part of the menu. Will tell you firmware version, what branch of the repository you have downloaded to your printer, what setup you're using, whether it be Cartographer or no Cartographer. It will also tell you what version of Cartographer, what version of firmware on the Cartographer, and what offsets you're using for the Cartographer once you have that installed. Option 1, status and diagnostics. So the upper part tells you the same thing as the main menu. It tells you whether or not you have the Cartographer installed. The Bootstrap shows you 2 items that were installed during Bootstrap. Core components, this list is all the items needed for Cartographer, and they are listed in the order that they should be installed if you were going to do it one by one. Optional extras are items outside of the Cartographer setup that you may want to install on your printer. Option 2 is your install paths. You either have Cartographer or no Cartographer. If you install no Cartographer, you will have the option here to switch over to the cartographer setup. 0 for back. Number 3, cartographer tools. The top will show you the status of your cartographer. It's showing right now that I do have mine plugged in, so it sees it at the USB port, but nothing else is installed, so it's not showing up there. This is where you can flash your cartographer. It also has some documentation you can read if you want to know more about the firmware install, DFU mode. We will walk through this in a later video. 0 for back. Number 4 is optional extras. If you've ordered the R3 graphite bed, you can have the menu install the items in the printer.config file that are needed. Under printer workflow, you can have the camp installed, which will change your line purge from the upper left corner to a smaller, thicker line by the print. Axis twist compensation. Some of the printers will have a twist in their X or possibly Y axis. This lets you calibrate it to help accommodate for that. I haven't seen that I've needed that on either of my printers, so I've made sure it installs, but I've never calibrated it. Secure auth. If you're worried about security through your SSH, this will allow you to install a key in your printer and provide a more secure way to log into the printer. There is a walkthrough on how to do this in the repository, and I have gone through that, and it does work, but it's not something I would typically have installed. 0 for back. Number 5, maintenance and recovery. Number 1 is the core components installer. So this is a list of all the core components that need to be installed to run Cartographer, and they are in order they need to be installed. So you could install them one by one. If you're going to do the no Cartographer setup, you could just skip number 8. 0 for back. Factory reset and cleanup tools. The wipe sock does leave some folders and files behind when it resets it to factory default. They don't harm anything being there, but if you wanted a clean wipe, you could run the improved cleanup. Or if you just want to do a normal wipe sock all, you can do number 3, which is the factory reset only. 0 for back. And then number 6, update installers. If any updates are made to the repository that you would like to upload to your printer, you can just hit number 6. It'll go out on the internet and look, and it will pull them in and then restart the menu system so all the updates are active. In the next video, I will show you how to flash the cartographer. We are going to walk through the steps to flash the cartographer. I have a V4 cartographer installed on the printer. It is currently plugged into the USB port. We're going to go to option 3, cartographer tools, and we are going to choose option 1, normal USB catapult firmware flash. It gives you the code that it reads off of the cartographer, the 1D50:614E, and it's going to ask you if the cartographer is connected and ready to flash firmware. So yes, enter. It's going to go through and load the firmware utility. So it's detected that it's a V4 and that it has 6.0.0 firmware installed. So you have 3 options. You can install the full firmware, the light firmware, or abort back out. We're going to go with option 1, the full firmware. Full is recommended. It's a faster comms rate. So choosing selection 1, enter. It'll now start flashing, and once it's done flashing, it'll go through and verify what it's written. So it flashed, it verified, tells you it's complete. Hit enter to exit, hit enter again, and we're back at the main menu. So here's the bottom of the V4 cartographer. On the left you can see the 4 holes that are together. There's 2 holes, one labeled BT0 and the other one 3V3. You have to short those 2 holes together to put the cartographer in DFU mode. So they're the holes that are closest to the connector end. So I have a set of tweezers that I'm going to try and insert into the holes. I have the cartographer unplugged. So now I'll try and insert it into the holes. And I'm trying to do this so you can see what I'm doing. It makes it that much more difficult. So I have the tweezers in the holes, and now I am going to plug the cartographer back in. And we'll leave it for just a couple seconds, and then we'll remove it. That should put the cartographer in DFU mode, and now we'll go back to the computer in the menus and we'll check to see what state it's in. just finished jumpering the BT0 and the 3V3 pins on the V4 and then plugging the USB back in. And now we are going to go to the Cartographer Tools page, which is option 3. So DFU Recovery Flash, it says ready. Up in the top under USB, it says DFU Recovery Mode detected. So that code right there, the 0483, is the manufacturer, and the DF11 signifies the DFU recovery mode. So we're going to choose option 2. It's going to ask us which version of Cartographer we have. We have a V4 installed, and it's going to make us confirm, and we want the full. It's going to make us confirm one more time. So the DFU mode cannot detect between V3 and V4, so make sure you are careful with your choices. Now it's going through the flash. And we'll hit enter. Now after doing the DFU recovery, the code changed up here, and it says it's in the runtime USB. This is no longer ready, and now normal flash is ready. I would recommend doing a normal USB flash after you've done the DFU recovery. We'll go through this again. Choose option 1, full. So now the Cartographer is flashed and ready to go. This just lets you know that everything completed correctly. And we're back to the main menu, ready for the Cartographer install. Install your Cartographer mount. When you pull off the cover, there are 2 silver screws back in here that you will take out. You put the mount there, and then run your new 2.6 by 20 millimeter self-tapping screws through those holes. Mount your Cartographer to the mount. You'll then have to run the cable. And I found these online to put the cable on the cable chain. And I drilled a hole in the back of my riser to be able to run it out, and then it plugs into the side of the printer. And then before we start, we're going to install the Y-axis spacers onto the rails. And now we should be ready. We've installed the hardware. Now we are ready to install the Cartographer software. We're going to go through the menu system. So we are back in MobaXterm. We're going to click on Recent Sessions, which will log us in. We have to change the directory, cd/K2-Improvements. And then shmenu.sh. We're back in the menus now, and we're going to choose option 2, install or change setup. We are now going to choose option 2, which is install Cartographer setup. This shows you what items are going to be installed and the order they're going to be installed in. It will take 5 to 15 minutes. Choose yes and enter. The install has now begun. We have made it through to the part of the install where it's going to ask you what your mount is, so it can put the correct offsets in. Choose yes. There's 3 options: the default Jammin, or the mount made by Stranula, which is the front mount, which works for V3 and V4. There's the Jimmy V mount, which I personally have not tested, and then there's a custom mount if you have something different. It shows the offset for the jammin mount, which is the one I have installed. So I'm going to choose option 1, and now it's going to tell you need to power cycle the printer, and then we will be ready to install a couple of other options. We're going to back out of this. Now that we're back on the main menu, it now tells you that the setup is Cartographer. It is not seeing the Cartographer. We will have to reboot the printer before it will detect the Cartographer, but it shows our mount. So I'm going to power down and power up the printer. The printer is rebooted. It kicked us off the menus. We are going to hit R to return, and we have to run the script for the menus. Now that we've powered off the printer and powered it back on, it is now detecting that we have a V4 Cartographer with the firmware version of 6. I am going to install a couple of other options that I use. So I'm going to go to optional extras. I'm going to install the R3Men bed. We'll go to status. So now we have a picture here of what is installed on the printer. We have a few more items that will need to be set up in Fluid, so in the next video we will do a quick Fluid walkthrough, and then I will show you how to change the last few settings, and then we will start the Cartographer calibrations. We are now going to do a quick walkthrough of Fluid. This will help familiarize you with some of the areas we will need to interact with in order to set up and calibrate the Cartographer. Open a browser. I'm using Chrome. Type in the IP address of your printer. Then add :4408. This brings us to Fluid's main page. When we added in the Cartographer install, you now have the camera in Fluid. Over on the left are the main navigation buttons. You have a home screen. The console is basically a direct command line to your printer. You can type clipper commands or macros here, and Fluid will show you exactly how your printer responds. Things like homing, running the Cartographer calibrations, checking status messages, and troubleshooting errors. G-code preview. Any jobs that you have run, history, tune. You can actually run bed meshes here. It'll show you which one is active and which one is saved. Configuration. These are all your configuration files. Custom and updates were installed with the Cartographer. Printer config. A lot of your macros are in here. Setup items. When you go into a config file, if you press Control F on your keyboard, you get the find here. We'll type in R3Men. It actually brings us down to what was installed when we installed the R3Men bed. You can do a save and restart after any changes. The save and restart is different from a save config or a firmware restart. Or you can close back out of the file over here. We have system. You can restart Clipper or do a firmware restart. It also shows you your system utilization. So the areas we will deal with, we'll go back to the home page. You can do a home all, which is G28. If you type G28 into the command line over here on your small console preview, it would home the printer. Home XY, home Z. This is the increments that it will jog by if you're using the jog buttons. On the printer screen, there is a menu where you can adjust your Z offset live. That can also be done here, and you can also see your Z offset that's currently running here. You can turn on your heaters for extruder, heater bed, chamber fan, chamber heater. These can all be set here. We scroll down, you have a list of macros here. If you install the plate selector, there will be additional macros added up here for touch scan and touch calibrate for the Cartographer. For the standard Cartographer setup under Tools, you have Cartographer Scan Calibrate and Cartographer Touch Calibrate, and we will go through those to finish setting up the Cartographer. Probe accuracy, you can run that to test how the Cartographer setup is reacting, whether it's consistent or not. Screws tilt calculate. When you run this, it will actually probe the bed at all 4 bed leveling screws, and then bring up a screen to tell you how much you need to adjust the knobs to actually get your bed level. Z-tilt adjust will measure both sides of the bed and adjust the bed side to side so it is level. This is a small view of the console. We can come over here and see the full console. There are several commands that you can type in here to run different things on the printer. Configuration. Updates and custom was added in. One item you'll want is in custom, and that is overrides.config. We open that file. We have bed mesh here. It defaults to 19 by 19 when you first install. It defaults that way for the Mount Cartographer setup. You wouldn't want to do a 50-50 mesh using the stock probe. That would take a very long time. But when we finish the setup here, we will adjust that. These are individual Z offsets for the different materials. For the plate selector, this will adjust the start frequency for the Carto Touch Calibrate. And then you also have the max noisy samples down here. So the default setting is 2. Max noisy samples means if you have a subset of 5 samples, it is looking for 3 of them to be within a certain range. So you can have 2 that are outside of that range and it will still find a good sample. If you set this to 0, it'll still do the same 10 touches to try and find 3 consecutive samples that are within that range. I typically set this to 0 when I'm setting up my cartographer. Then after you make any changes here, you can come over here and just click save, but before they take effect you will have to restart, or you can click here and hit save and restart. We'll back out of here, and then I'll come here to do a firmware restart at different times, or type firmware_restart into the console. That should be all the items we need for Fluid. So in the next video I will walk through exactly what we need to set up in Fluid. Before we start the cartographer calibration, there are a few settings we need to check and possibly change. These will be done in Fluid. Since I've already connected to Fluid before in my browser, there's a shortcut here. I can just click on that. We're going to want to go to Configuration. We'll click on Custom, and we are going to go into Overrides Config. Since we have the cartographer installed, we're going to want to change the 19 by 19 mesh to 50 by 50. It defaults to 19 by 19 for the no cartographer setup. So that's 50 by 50. The Carto Touch Calibrate Start, the default is 500, and I would suggest that you start with your touch calibration with it at 500 just so you can see how it works and understand what it's doing. Once you have some experience with it, if you are using the plate selector setup for calibrations, you can change this to 2000 and it will change the start frequency to 2000 instead of starting at 500. On my printers, it seems like the frequency gets up into the 1800 to 2200 range during the touch calibrations. Sometimes when it's finding a lower value that it finds acceptable, it may vary a little bit. So I've set mine at 2000, but once again, I would suggest you play with it at 500 first and figure out how it works. Do multiple touch calibrations and watch how it calibrates with the numbers. Max noisy samples, the default setting is 2. What that means is it will try and do multiple sets of 10 touches. As it goes through those 10 touches, it looks for 3 readings that are within a certain tolerance. It needs to find those 3 readings within a subset of 5 touches because it allows 2 of those samples to be out of range. If you set this to 0, it will have to find 3 consecutive touches that are within that range during that 10 sample subset. So I'm going to change this to 0. And now I'm going to do some other changes. So we are going to go up over here to the upper right and just do a save. Now these settings won't be active until we save and restart. For now, we're just going to do a save, and that will stage it for when you restart to become active. We'll back out of here. We're going to go up a level, and we're going to go into Printer Config. Now you can scroll down and try and find the R3min bed settings if you've installed the R3min bed. I'm going to do a Control F and type in R3min, and it brings me down to these settings here. So it does have the settings in there. It changed the sensor type to R3min bed, which we set up right above it. One thing it does add, which R3min recommends, is that the max power be set at 0.8 or 80% if you are running 110 power. This will help reduce the amp load depending on your circuitry. If it's set to 100%, you may start tripping breakers off of that circuit. So I've checked mine and I'm actually able to run it at 100% without having any issues. So I'm actually going to go back through here and undo that variable. Now, without the variable there, it will actually run at 100%. The other thing you can do is you can add a hashtag in front of it. It turns green, which means it's remarked out and it will not use that setting. Same thing that was done up here. This is the stock thermistor that was remarked out, and then it was changed to R3 bed. So if you want to keep the history and know what it was so you don't forget, you can just remark it out and it won't use it. So this time we are going to do a save and restart because I changed the max power setting. The next thing we're going to do is do a bed calibration. So we'll do the save and restart. Now the printer's rebooting. So we have to wait for the printer to finish rebooting and then we'll run the bed PID. The printer is finished rebooting, so we are going to go back to the home screen. After the firmware install and all the configuration changes with installing the new R3 bed, we need to do a bed PID. And to do that, you can press this button here, the macro button, and it will run the bed PID. Or you are able to go over here and type in bed PID over here in the console. We're just going to use the macro button, which if you see in the console, it inserted the bed PID. If we scroll back up here, we see that the heater bed is 100%, and it's going to go through and heat the bed up, and it'll heat the bed up and cool it off and heat it up and cool it off. It's looking for the best settings to use for controlling the heat in the bed. So we can see here that the bed PID went through multiple heating and cooling cycles to get the best values. And then you see it dropped off here. That means it actually ran a save config when it was done to save the values to the bottom of the printer.config. If we scroll to where the bed PID was run afterwards, it says the save config command will update the printer config file with these parameters and restart the printer. So it has done that on its own. So now we will power cycle the printer. After a save config, you want to power cycle the printer to make sure that it homes correctly. Anytime a save config is done, you should always turn the power switch off and turn it back on. And once we do that, we will be ready to start the calibration for the cartographer. Now that we've finished setup and we have power cycled the printer, we're ready to start with the cartographer scan calibrate. The first thing they tell you to do is home XY, and then we'll go into tools and select the cartographer scan calibrate. I actually do a home all, and it will bring the bed up to a certain point, but then it will post a fault saying that there's no scan loaded. At that point, you have to be careful because if you try and run any other commands other than the scan calibrate, there's a possibility it could run the bed into your nozzle and cause damage. So you can do just the home XY and then jog the bed from the bottom all the way up. If you're going to do a home all, just be careful with it. So after the Z tried to home, scan model not loaded comes up. We'll close that. We'll go to Tools and do the Cartographer Scan Calibrate. That brings up this menu, which lets you jog the tool head at different lengths, anywhere from 0.005 up to 1 millimeter. We'll start at 1 millimeter till we get close. So we have a 0.1 millimeter feeler gauge. So right now the feeler gauge barely has any resistance, but I can feel resistance between the nozzle and the bed. So it doesn't have to be touching hard, you just need the feeler gauge to know that it's there. If you don't have a feeler gauge, you can use just a regular sheet of paper. Should be able to slide that in there and just feel a little bit of resistance between the nozzle and the bed, and that tells you that it's where it needs to be. Once you get it to the right spot, press the accept. Now it will go through a scan. And that part of the calibration is complete. So now we need to come down to the console, and it tells you need to do a save config. So we'll do the save config. It populates it in the bar. Hit send. So the printer is rebooting. So the servo's powered down. Bed's dropping. And once you do a save config, remember you need to do a power cycle before you try to home the printer. So I will let this power back up and do a power cycle, and then we will start with the touch calibrate. We've just finished the Cartographer scan calibrate and cycled power to the machine after doing the save config. We are set and ready to go on the Cartographer touch calibrate. First thing we will do is a home all. After doing a home Z until you run your first bed mesh, you're going to get this bed mesh unknown profile default. Close that out. Next thing I always do is run a Z tilt adjust under tools. This will level the bed side to side. And now I run a home Z. Close that fault again. Go under tools. And we are doing the Cartographer Touch Calibrate. We are going to switch over to the console. So right now it's looking for a frequency where it can get some samples within a certain tolerance. When you first start, if you're watching the nozzle on the printer, the nozzle's actually not touching the bed. And that's why it's going through, it's figuring out what frequency it can use so that it touches the bed and gets consistent results. So frequency 2360, it's saying has some promise. So now it's going to go through and do 10 sets of samples. Each set of samples will do up to 10 touches. It's looking for 3 samples within 0.01 of each other. Well, we've had success. It's gone through 10 sets of samples and able to find 3 touches within the selected range. And now to save that, we have to do another save config. So click on save config, go over here, hit send. The printer is once again going to cycle the software and then come back up, and then we will have to turn off the main switch and power it back up. And we will be ready to run our first print. In this video, we need to set up the slicer to pass what type of filament you are printing with. Over here on the left for printer, I actually have 4 different slicer settings. One is standard, which passes material only. One is camp, which runs the camp purge line instead of the normal lower left corner purge line. We have plate selection if you install that. and then we have camp and plate selection. All four will pass the material as that's needed for Z offsets per material. The way to set this up is go down here to your system preset, the standard, call that up, click the little pencil here, go to machine G code, you have machine start G code. Click on that pencil. We will be replacing this whole section. You go to the repository, and we've been down in Quick Start, so we're going to scroll back up, and we're going to go to Installer, Extras, Camp Adaptive Purge, and here are slicer templates. So in here is G-code for all four different slicer profiles I talked about. I've started one for Orca, but I don't have that finished yet. So for now, we're only going to do the Creality Start Material G-code. We're going to click on that, and this gives you the whole G-code file. So in this, click in there, press Control A, Control C to copy. Now we're going to go back to Creality Print. In here, we're going to click in here. We're going to hit Control A, hit Delete, and then Control V to copy. So what we've added, this should be an exact copy except for this part of the line up here, which is material equals filament type. So that's added in so that you can store your offsets per material. Click OK, and then I typically do a save as, and I save mine as standard. You can name it whatever you want. So we'll get out of there. Then I would choose standard, and that part is complete. You can go through and do the same thing for all four slicer templates. Create a new one or just replace what you have and do a save as, and you can name them for whatever you want, for whatever makes sense to you. We have finished calibrating the cartographer, and we have set up Creality Print to pass the material. So our next step is to do a first print. That way we can adjust our global Z offset. We have powered down and powered back up the printer, so it should be safe to home. So we're going to do a home all. We have not done a bed mesh yet, so we're getting bed mesh unknown profile. Close that fault. We are going to go to Tools. We're going to run a Z-tilt adjust. That will level the bed side to side. Anytime that I've had the servo power off, I run the Z-tilt adjust to make sure the bed is level. And now I will run a home Z. We get the fault again. We'll close that out. We're now going to go to the tune page, and we are going to run a bed mesh. Click on Calibrate. So using the cartographer, it is doing a 50 by 50 mesh. We have created our mesh now. We're going to do a save as. Save it as default. And now to save it to the bottom of printer config, we're going to come up to the top and do a save config and restart. This is what it's going to save to the bottom of printer config. And save config and restart. So the printer is going to save the data and then restart the software. Because we did a save config, we need to cycle power at the main, turn the switch off, wait about 10 seconds and turn it back on. The printer has finished powering up from the power cycle. So to get ready for the print, we're going to preheat the bed to 70. I'm running PET-G. And we're going to heat the extruder to 140. That way it has some time to heat soak. Now that we've powered up, we're going to do a home all again. Now that we have a bed mesh calibration saved, we no longer get the fault popping up. Because the servo power was off, I'm going to go to Tools and I'm going to run a Z-tilt adjust again. And And then I will do a home Z. So you can see up here the printer's heating up. It's heat soaking. So while it's finishing heat soaking, we will go to Creality Print. And we have our K2 Plus standard, which is the G-code that will pass the filament type to the printer. I have my smooth PEI plate installed. It's a glacier plate. I will auto map the filaments. So I have black, Sunloop PETG, and slot 1. So for first layer print, I am going to right click on the plate, add a testing primitive, select cube. I'm going to go up here to scale, turn off uniform scale, and we are going to do a 100 by 100 cube. For the Z layer height, look at what your first layer height is in your profile and set your Z layer height to that. Turn scale off, and we should be ready to send this to the printer. Slice plate, send print. Make sure the correct printer is selected. Materials PETG, 1A PETG, start print. We're going to switch back to fluid. It's now doing an adaptive bed mesh that will scan the bed just outside of where the object is being printed. It doesn't scan the whole bed every time. Now it's doing a Cartographer touch home. This will set the Z. It found 3 good samples and is moving on. So now it is heating up the extruder. So I know from all the testing I've done that I'm going to have to adjust the Z offset, probably about 0.08, move the bed further away from the nozzle. So I'm going to go to settings here, general, go down to expert mode. Now it won't display the Z offset here, but the buttons do still work. So I'll let it print here for a second so we can see how the nozzle is reacting. Is it too close or too far? So now that the corner is starting to appear, I can see that the nozzle is too close, so I'm going to back it off. And I did 0.05 and then I did 0.013 times, so it backed it off about 0.08. From what I see in there, I'm going to back it off 0.01 one more time. So we'll move the camera in to get an overhead view. So you can see where it was started, the nozzle was dragging through the filament. Now that I've adjusted the offset, it's printing a nice smooth first layer. Looks like the PETG is starting to string a little bit. I may have to dry it again. So even though it's in the CFS and the relative humidity is at 4%, there's still humidity in there and it will absorb some moisture over time. It's been quite a while since I dried it. Now that the print is finished, we can go into the console and you can see where every time I adjusted the Z offset, it updated the number here. So we can do a save config and we will send it, and that will save the new Z offset to the bottom of printer.cfg. So it's saving the data to the file and then it will start the software back up. And since we did a save config, we need to do a power cycle from the main switch. So we got this fault on restart. That will happen sometimes. Come down to System, do a firmware restart. Now that the software has restarted and we've done a power cycle, the printer is ready to print. Do a home all, a Z tilt adjust, and a home Z. I'll remove the part from the printer first and then do that. That was saving the global Z offset. You should not do that after you do it the first time. You don't want that to change. So if you go into a print and you change the Z offset, make sure you do not do a save config after that, or it will update the global Z offset again, and then all your filament offsets will be incorrect. To save a new per filament offset, go to Configuration, go to Custom, go to Overrides.cfg, and you have PLA, PETG, ABS, ASA, and then the default. If I needed to adjust PETG again, I would change this from 0 to whatever I need to adjust it to. If I do it PAL print, I will have to put an offset in here because it will require a different offset than PETG. I would adjust it here and then come up here and do a save and restart. So a save and restart is not the same as a save config, so you don't have to cycle the main power after you do a save and restart. But you do need to do the save and restart so it saves your offset in this file. Whenever you run PLA after this, when it starts up, it will pull the offset from here and run that as an offset for whenever you run PLA. And that should be it. Your cartographer is now ready to use.